Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 289, Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana is almost here. It goes down on June 10th. And this card, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's not the greatest card on paper, but there is quite a few bright spots of UFC 289 that we can point out. And this is going to be my top 3 reasons I love UFC 289. I'm going to go from 3 to 1, 1 being the reason I most love UFC 289. And I actually think it's going to surprise a lot of you that number 2 isn't number 1. But we'll talk about that later in the video. And also, obviously, UFC 289 isn't the greatest card by any means. And I've already done a video of the top 3 reasons I hate UFC 289. I will link that down in the description as well as the end cards if you guys want to go check it out after this. And also in the lead up to UFC 289, I'll be doing a bunch of predictions. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, before I get into my one honorable mention before I get to the list, comment down below what are some reasons that you love UFC 289. Again, I know it's not the greatest card. I know a lot of people are going to say, I'm not ordering this card. But point out some of the bright spots. Let's be positive about UFC 289. I came up with 3 reasons, and I also have an honorable mention. I think you guys can come up with some as well, but let me know before you even hear my reasons. So starting off with the first honorable mention, and that is that we are getting Dan Ige versus Nate Landwehr. This is an amazing featherweight matchup, to be honest. This is like more of a main card opener, in my opinion. But when is Nate Landwehr ever in a boring fight? I mean, that fight against David Onama last year was one of the most incredible fights I have seen in the last few years. It's not the most highly skilled, but it was absolute insanity. It was craziness. And when is Nate Landwehr ever in a boring fight? Then you have Dan Ige. I believe this is a big step up in competition for Nate Landwehr to all of a sudden take on Dan Ige in his next fight. And Dan Ige has been a guy who was in the top 10 at one point in time. And I think this is a quality fight. I think this fight will undoubtedly be an exciting fight. And I think it's going to answer some questions about where is Nate Landwehr truly? Is he truly just toughness and durability? Because you can only get by on that for so long. And I think Dan Ige will be the guy to expose him if he's just trying to get by on toughness and grit for too long, because Dan Ige is so good, so well-rounded. Doesn't get enough respect. Honestly, I thought Dan Ige beat Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett's coming off a title fight, and it was an interim title fight, but a title fight nonetheless. And I think Dan Ige is a very good fighter, and I think Nate Landwehr has reeled off a couple of these wins, been in exciting fights, got cut up, come back and win against David Onama, and it was craziness. And now he's getting this step up in competition. I think this is a good fight. I think this should probably open up the main card. Unfortunately, because of the way they structured this card, it's not that way. But I think this should be a quality fight, and I'm really looking forward to this fight, and I wanted to highlight it in this video. But I didn't think it deserved to be on the actual list. Moving on to my actual list, starting off with the number 3 reason I love UFC 289, and that is that the prelims are absolutely amazing. You look at the prelims, Matt Schnell versus David Dvorak headlining the prelims. I know a lot of people like to crap on flyweight. That's a great flyweight fight. Matt Schnell versus Suma Darji. That was a crazy fight. It was one of the craziest fights I've ever seen. That is one of the most underrated fights I have ever seen because of how crazy it was. And both guys are elite level flyweights. I know, neither one of them's on a crazy winning streak. Matt Schnell's on a 1-fight losing streak, and David Dvorak's on a 2-fight losing streak. But they're losing to some of the best guys, David Dvorak, Manel Kape, Matheus Nicolau, Matt Schnell lost to Matheus Nicolau as well. So they're still top of the food chain in terms of the flyweight division. And I love this fight. And that's not the only prelim I'm looking at. I'm looking at Khalil Roundtree versus Chris No Chin Daukaus making his way down to light heavyweight. No doubt in my mind there's a finish in this fight. This isn't the greatest skill matchup, but there's no doubt in my mind somebody is going to sleep in that fight. And for some reason on the UFC's website, they have Chris Daukaus ranked at number 13, even though he's never fought in the light heavyweight division. But he's looking to try to make a career resurgence, moving down from heavyweight. He's getting brutally KO'd up at heavyweight. He's moving down. He's going to take on Khalil Roundtree. I think this is going to be a fun fight while it lasts. And I think it's only probably going to last 1 round. But that's a great fight. Then you move down. That's not even, neither one of the fights I just talked about is the best prelim. Because the best prelim is Nasser Imavov versus Chris Curtis, a top 15 middleweight fight. Nasser number 12, Chris Curtis number 14. This is a great matchup. You have Nasser coming in off a loss against Sean Strickland, who stepped in on short notice, and Sean Strickland also happens to be one of Chris Curtis's good friends and training partner. And then you have Chris Curtis coming off a loss to Kelvin Gastelum, but it was very controversial. Could have went either way. And then also you had the headbutt in the second round that may have very well cost Chris Curtis the fight. And neither one of these guys is ever really in a boring fight. Chris Curtis, before his last loss against Kelvin Gastelum, he had that highlight reel KO of Joaquin Buckley, which was incredible. Nasser, a lot of people thought, oh, he's a future contender in the middleweight division. He kind of got sent to the back of the line by Sean Strickland, and now we're getting this matchup on the prelims. Nasser was in a main event of a fight night in his last fight. This is craziness that this is the second prelim. As of the current UFC bout order for UFC 289, they may shift this around, but that's an incredible middleweight matchup. I'm really looking forward to that fight. And then you have Hakeem Dawodu versus Lucas Almeida. That's a great fight as well in the featherweight division. Not as good as the other three, but those top three fights right there, I mean, they could all be on the main card of UFC 289, and they should be on the main card. Nasser Imavov versus Chris Curtis should be on the main card. Matt Snell versus David Dvorak should be on the main card. And even Khalil Roundtree versus Chris Dawkins, you can make an argument, but I'm not going to clutch my pearls over that fight. I understand kind of why that's on the prelims. That could be the headliner of the prelims, honestly. You're definitely going to get a KO there. But these prelims, I complained about it in my video of the reasons I hate UFC 289, about the way they structured this fight card. But the prelims are absolutely amazing. So if you're one of these people, I'm not buying UFC 289 and you're a huge MMA fan, well, you can at least watch the prelims because we are getting some quality fights on the prelims. I cannot wait for UFC 289's prelims. Moving on to my number 2 reason I love UFC 289, and that is that we are getting Charles Oliveira versus Beniel Dariush. This is an amazing fight. And I meant to mention this in my video about the reasons I hate UFC 289. I wish this was 5 rounds. This should be a 5-round fight. I know it may get finished early, but this should undoubtedly be a 5-round fight. Any fight that it could be conceived as a potential number 1 contender fight, it has to be 5 rounds. This is the people's main event of UFC 289. This is an incredible fight. When has Charles Oliveira ever been in a boring fight? Ever. I mean, the last fight against Islam Makhachev, he got outclassed, but he still got finished. That wasn't a boring fight at all. And that was one of the most excited anticipations I had for a UFC main event in many years. But you look at his title run before that, the Justin Gaethje fight was incredible and it only lasted 1 round. The Dustin Poirier fight was incredible. That lasted 3 rounds. He got the finish. The Michael Chandler fight for the vacant belt was incredible. That's one of the best 2-round fights I've ever seen in my entire life. The first round was absolutely incredible. Charles Oliveira almost gets stopped. The next thing you know, he's on Michael Chandler's back. Then Michael Chandler's jumping up in the air trying to shake him off. And then they get back to their feet, drops him again. And then 20 seconds into the second round, Charles Oliveira comes out and just starches Michael Chandler. And Oliveira has just been an exciting fight after exciting fight after exciting fight. And Beniel Dariush is on this long win streak. I think it's something like an 8-fight win streak. And in his last fight, he fought Mateusz Gamrot at UFC 280, same card as Charles Oliveira, Islam Makhachev. And a lot of people thought, okay, this is Beniel Dariush's, number 1 contender fight here. If he wins this fight, he's getting the title shot. A lot of people think he deserves the title shot already. He was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev before he was champion last year, got an injury, but now he's getting Charles Oliveira. And this is a fight that was scheduled, I think, like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it never ended up coming to fruition. I think Oliveira pulled out with an injury. I can't exactly remember. And we're finally getting it. It was supposed to happen at 288. It got moved to 289. When is Beniel Dariush ever in a boring fight? The Mateusz Gamrot fight was incredible. I don't know how Beniel Dariush has such incredible anti-grappling. The way he was scrambling in that Gamrot fight was unbelievable. He looked so good in that fight. Then the fight before that, he absolutely dominated Tony Ferguson. And I know Tony Ferguson has fallen off a cliff since then. But Dariush, such a well-rounded fighter, such a great fighter, skilled on the ground, skilled on the feet, has knockout power. He's not particularly old. He's getting up there in age. The only reason I bring that up is because he looks like he's 75 years old. But this is his chance. If Beniel Dariush goes out there and beats Charles Oliveira, he should be the number 1 contender. He should be next in line to fight Islam Makhachev. And the way Beniel Dariush was scrambling in that Mateusz Gamrot fight, I think Islam Makhachev versus Beniel Dariush is the most compelling lightweight title fight you can make in 2023. And I hope that we see it, but at the same time, I want Charles Oliveira to win because he's one of my favorite fighters. But no matter what, you have two of the most highly skilled lightweights fighting in a co-main event of UFC 289, and it has massive ramifications. There's some people thinking if Charles Oliveira can go out there and starch Beniel Dariush in the first round, there's a chance we get Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2 later this year. I don't think that's going to happen, but there is a chance. And Charles Oliveira back in a title fight, that makes me happy. So I would absolutely love to see that as well. I just think there's no way that this fight is boring. And I think this is one of those matchups that you can really point to and say, what great matchmaking by the UFC. They tried to book this a couple times. Seemed like it was never going to happen. It's finally going to happen at UFC 289. And it should be absolutely incredible because Oliveira has very good striking. And, you know, you have a realm for Charles Oliveira where people are scared to go down to the ground with him. Beniel Dariush isn't going to be scared to go down to the ground with him, similar to Islam Makhachev. So I'm very curious how this fight plays out. You know, what makes me most excited for certain matchups is when I have no idea what's going to happen. And in this fight, I just been flipping, flopping back and forth. Is Charles Oliveira going to win? Is Beniel Dariush going to win? Is Charles Oliveira going to win? Beniel Dariush going to win? And this is one of those fights that is very difficult to pick. And I cannot wait for this matchup. This is one of the fights that I'm most looking forward to in terms of non-title fights in 2023. You cannot miss Charles Oliveira versus Beniel Dariush. This is the people's main event of UFC 289. In my opinion, Amanda Nunes, Irene Aldana is a post-limp. Beniel Dariush, Charles Oliveira might as well be the main event. Moving on to the number one reason I love UFC 289. And this is going to surprise people because honestly, Charles Oliveira versus Beniel Dariush could have been the number one reason, but the number one reason I love UFC 289 is because Juliana Pena lost her title fight. I mean, Juliana Pena, back at UFC 277 in the rematch against Amanda Nunes, got absolutely dominated. I think two judges had it 50-43. That means she lost every single round, and in 2 rounds, she was dominated so badly, the judges gave Nunes the round 10-8. They're rare in MMA. That's very rarely happen. That's how bad she got dominated. And she had no business getting a trilogy fight. I understand she won the first one. Amanda Nunes didn't show up. Amanda Nunes underestimated her, whatever you want to say about it. But once I saw that second fight at UFC 277, I was thinking, okay, there's no way. Juliana Pena, her title run's over. We're never going to see her again. Next thing you know, the UFC announced Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena 3. And I said, this is a terrible fight. Who wants to see this? And Juliana Pena was coming out and saying, you know, oh, well, if Nunes wasn't fighting southpaw and this and that, and making all the excuses in the world for why she lost. But her striking literally looks like she has some type of physical disability. I don't know. Who's her striking coach? They need to be fired immediately. Seriously. I'm being dead serious. Is he watching her hit the heavy bag and saying, damn, Juliana, you're really sharpening up these skills? Her striking is horrible. Her grappling is okay. She got submitted by Irene Aldana, who's a striker. Juliana Pena, I don't know how she became champion. Amanda Nunes should be embarrassed she lost to her. It should have never happened. All the factors just went in her favor that night. You know, Amanda Nunes didn't take her seriously. She's coming back too early after she had COVID and all this and that. And Juliana Pena, with her heart and determination, she won the fight. She is not a high-skilled fighter. By no means does she deserve to fight a trilogy fight for the title. And I'm not going to sit here and celebrate anyone getting injured. But thank God she fell out of this fight because who wants to watch her get 50-43 again? That was the least compelling fight I could ever imagine. You know, I never wanted to see that. When the UFC announced it, I was absolutely shocked. And you have Irene Aldana, who, while I don't think, you know, she's definitely going to beat Nunes, or I don't really even think she has a great chance to beat Nunes. I think she has a more significant shot at beating Nunes than Juliana Pena does. I mean, remember those combinations she was throwing? She was squared up, throwing slappy combinations. Nunes just stepped back, plucked her, dropped her. It was an embarrassing striking performance. It looked so bad. I can't believe how bad it was. And Irene Aldana, I think, is much better than Juliana Pena. She's much more highly skilled than Juliana Pena. She's well-rounded. She's coming off that crazy TKO to the body. The up kick to the body. I mean, that was insanity against Macy Chastone. We've never seen a finish like that in MMA. She was on her back. She throws an up kick, lands her heel on the body of Macy Chastone, and TKOs her. Incredible finish. And I think she was the most deserving contender in the women's bantamweight division. a very shallow women's bantamweight division, which I don't know what's going to happen to this division after Juliana Pena and Amanda Nunes retire. I'm kidding about Juliana Pena, but I don't know what's going to happen with this division. The UFC doesn't seem to be developing talent. But Irene Aldana, I think she has a way better chance than Juliana Pena. And I'm just so happy that Juliana Pena is not getting that trilogy fight because she's delusional. The performance she put on against Amanda Nunes in the second fight at UFC 277 was, I mean, I could just throw out every insult in the book. It was horrible. It was terrible. It was embarrassing. And then she just made all these like bogus excuses for why she lost. So I think she needs to go out there, win a fight, win 2 fights. Then maybe she can get another title fight because the division is so shallow. But by no means, you get 50-43 on 2 judges' scorecards and you're getting an immediate rematch. That is delusional. That is crazy. That was bad decision-making by the UFC. So I'm happy she lost her title fight. That is the #1 reason I love UFC 289. And that sounds crazy, but really that Nunes-Pena trilogy was really just ruining my entire 2023 in terms of excitement level for MMA fights because that was just destroying UFC 289 in my opinion, and it's already a lackluster card. But let me know what you guys think about all these reasons down in the comments. Are there any reasons that I missed that I should have mentioned in the video? Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.